A powerful heir with everything falls for a woman with nothing but heart during the busiest season of the year. Their connection ignites a war between tradition and destiny. When wealth meets genuine love, someone has to bend, or everything breaks. Stay with me. This story will hold you captive until the final moment. Christmas lights flickered across Seoul's winter streets, painting the frozen city in warm gold. Inside the Grand Imperial Hotel, chaos reigned. Staff members sprinted between corridors. Decorators balanced on tall ladders, wrapping evergreen branches around marble columns. And the sharp scent of cinnamon mixed with designer fragrances from guests passing through the lobby. Welcome back, friends. This is Prince of Afro-Korean Stories, where passion, danger, and impossible romance intersect. Please keep sharing your ideas for future episodes, and kindly like, share, and subscribe, and activate notifications so you never miss our latest content. Amara smoothed down her black apron, pulling it snug as she lifted a tray loaded with espresso cups. Her legs throbbed from working back-to-back shifts, but she kept moving. Each coin she earned brought her closer to her goal, sending enough money home to her mother and younger brothers in Lagos. Under her breath, she hummed an old Yoruba carol, one that reminded her of dusty roads, filled with dancing children, and the sound of talking drums echoing through humid nights. The melody was swallowed by the clatter of dishes and shouting managers. But one person heard it. Joon had escaped the oppressive formality of his family's private suite upstairs. Wearing plain black clothes that helped him disappear among the workers, he often did this when the weight of expectations became too crushing. Her voice made him pause mid-step. It wasn't polished or rehearsed, but it carried something genuine, something alive in a way nothing in his gilded world ever was. He stood near the storage room entrance, watching her, loop delicate glass ornaments onto a massive pine tree. Despite obvious exhaustion etched across her features, she smiled. Nobody acknowledged her existence except to bark another order. "You there, straighten that ribbon. Move those crates faster." Each command reduced her to nothing more than her uniform. But Joon saw her differently. To him, she radiated light in the middle of disorder. Their eyes locked briefly when she turned and spotted him watching. Startled, she straightened. He bowed slightly, maintaining his disguise as just another employee. "Your singing is lovely," he said quietly. Her cheeks warmed, uncertain whether to accept the compliment or brush it aside. People in her position didn't receive praise often. She offered a shy smile. "It makes the hours pass quicker," she replied, returning to her work. For reasons beyond his understanding, Joon remained. And that evening, beneath the glow of half-strung Christmas lights, something unexpected began to bloom. The next night found Amara drowning in preparation tasks again. Mountains of decoration boxes surrounded her. Ribbons spilled across the floor in tangled heaps, and supervisors pushed everyone harder with each passing hour. The charity gala loomed just days away, and perfection was the only acceptable standard. She didn't notice Joon approaching until he knelt beside her, rolling up his sleeves. "I'll give you a hand," he offered, reaching for a knotted string of bulbs. Amara blinked in surprise. "You really don't need to. This is what they pay me for." "I understand," he answered simply, but nobody should face impossible lights alone. Despite herself, she laughed, her exhaustion lifting momentarily. Something about him felt different from the other staff, though she couldn't identify exactly what. His hands moved carefully, inexperienced with manual labor. She noticed how he hesitated, unsure of his grip. Still, he stayed beside her, focused and sincere. Together they battled, the stubborn decorations, both laughing when the lights suddenly blinked to life in a chaotic rainbow of colors. Amara showed him how to tie bows, the way her grandmother taught her back home. Sturdy, uncomplicated, and lovely. He absorbed every word as though her instructions held great importance. When the building finally quieted late into the night, they sat together on the service stairwell steps sharing hot chocolate from paper cups. Amara talked about her siblings, about the Christmas celebrations she missed terribly. Joon listened, feeling an unfamiliar ache in his chest. He possessed every material comfort imaginable, yet none of the genuine warmth that flowed through her stories. "You make the holidays sound authentic," he confessed. "For me, Christmas has always meant business deals, impressing guests, maintaining appearances. But you make it sound like it actually matters." Amara's expression softened. Christmas doesn't live in fancy decorations or expensive parties. It lives in people. It lives in connection. For the first time in countless years, Joon understood, and though she had no idea who he truly was, Amara had already begun transforming how he saw everything. The gala preparations reached fever pitch with each sunrise. Amara navigated through glittering evening gowns, gleaming silverware, and endless commands shouted by stressed supervisors. But she also found herself searching for Joon, who mysteriously appeared whenever she needed assistance most. When she nearly dropped an entire tray of crystal glasses, his quick reflexes saved them from shattering. When heavy boxes proved too much, he lifted them alongside her, and when her voice wavered from pure exhaustion, he offered gentle words of encouragement. To everyone else, he remained just another helpful worker. To Amara, he was becoming the secret bright spot in every difficult day. But whispers started circulating. "That African girl is getting bold," one Korean waitress hissed to another. "Always laughing with that man. Doesn't she understand how things work here?" Amara overheard them, though she pretended otherwise. She'd encountered prejudice before in different countries, in different jobs. But this time the pain cut deeper because she couldn't deny what was growing inside her. The shared laughter, the warmth that filled her chest whenever Joon appeared. These weren't feelings she could simply ignore. One evening, standing before a partially decorated tree, Joon moved closer. "Amara," he said softly, "do you ever feel like people see only what they want to see, not who you truly are?" Her throat constricted. "Every single day," she whispered. "But I've learned to hold my head high regardless, because my value doesn't depend on their judgment. It comes from within." She placed her palm against her heart. Joon studied her face, something intense burning in his gaze. For the first time, he wanted to reveal his true identity, but before he could speak, the hotel manager burst in, shouting orders and demanding Amara hurry up. Their moment fractured, and she rushed away, leaving Joon with confessions trapped behind his teeth. Yet one truth remained suspended between them. Something powerful was building, something neither could control. The night of the staff rehearsal before the gala, Amara worked on arranging centerpieces throughout the magnificent ballroom. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across polished marble floors, and every surface gleamed like something from a world she'd never been permitted to enter. She moved silently between tables, adjusting flower arrangements, positioning candles, ensuring every tiny detail met impossible standards. Joon entered wearing a pristine white dress shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked refined, sharper somehow, yet still attempting to blend in. Amara studied him with growing suspicion this time. Something about how supervisors never questioned his presence, how he moved through restricted spaces freely. "You're not actually a waiter, are you?" she asked abruptly, setting down a golden candle holder. He froze, then offered a small smile. "What makes you think that? You don't carry yourself like one. You don't serve like one." She paused, noticing the faint mark on his wrist where an expensive watch usually sat. "And your hands aren't accustomed to this kind of work." Joon chuckled quietly, dropping his gaze. "You're perceptive, Amara." But before he could continue, the doors flew open and a man entered whose very presence demanded immediate silence. His tailored suit, silver-streaked hair, and piercing stare commanded instant attention. He scanned the room, then his eyes locked onto Joon. "What are you doing here, Joon?" The words weren't loud, but the authority behind them cut through the air like steel. Amara's eyes widened in shock. Joon, the heir, the man whose family owned the very floors she cleaned, the rooms she served. She stood paralyzed, the flower stem in her hand trembling. "Father, I was helping," Joon replied. "Helping?" Chairman Kong's voice thundered despite its controlled volume. "You think this is appropriate? Mingling with staff?" His cold gaze flicked toward Amara, dismissive and sharp as broken glass. Shame and heat flooded Amara's face. She wanted to disappear completely, but she forced herself to remain standing. In that crushing moment, everything shifted. What had felt like genuine friendship now seemed impossibly foolish. He existed in a universe she could never reach. After that night, Amara kept her distance. She avoided Joon whenever possible, throwing herself into work. But avoiding him proved harder than she imagined. Everywhere she went, traces of his presence lingered. The memory of shared hot chocolate, his quiet encouragement, the way he looked at her as though she actually mattered. The hotel buzzed with gossip now. Everyone knew the heir had been spending time with the Nigerian waitress. Snickers followed her through hallways. One afternoon, while carrying dishes through the staff kitchen, a coworker spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Does she actually think she'll marry into wealth? Poor thing doesn't know reality. Amara clenched her jaw, forcing herself not to react. She'd endured worse before, but Joon's silence hurt most of all. Since the confrontation with his father, he hadn't approached her openly. She wondered if maybe he regretted everything. Maybe she'd been foolish to think their time together meant something real. But Joon wasn't silent because he didn't care. He was silent because he was strategizing. He knew his father would never accept Amara easily. The Kang family maintained a carefully crafted reputation, and his father's authority was absolute. Yet for the first time in his entire life, Joon refused to submit to it. Late one night after the staff had departed, he found Amara sitting alone in the empty ballroom, her head resting against the decorated tree, eyes closed in exhaustion. He approached quietly, kneeling beside her. "You've been avoiding me," he said gently. Her eyes snapped open, weary but guarded. "Because it's the right thing to do. You're an heir. I'm me. Your father made that clear." "No," Joon said firmly, his voice stronger than she'd ever heard. "My father is wrong, and I won't allow him to dictate what my heart feels." Amara stared at him, torn between wanting to believe and fearing the inevitable heartbreak. But the conviction in his voice ignited something deep within her. And though the world around them sneered and judged, she realized this connection wasn't finished. If this hooked you already, don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment, because what happens next will absolutely shatter your expectations. Gala day arrived in an explosion of glitter, music, and controlled chaos. Amara had been working since before dawn, carrying, arranging, fixing last minute. Disasters. Her hands were raw, her back screamed in protest. But she moved with quiet determination. This was the most important night of the year, and failure wasn't an option. Then disaster struck. Just hours before guests were scheduled to arrive, one of the enormous floral archways meant to frame the ballroom entrance collapsed. Flowers lay crushed across the floor, wires tangled impossibly, ornaments shattered into pieces. Panic erupted among the staff. The manager barked frantic orders, but nothing worked. Time raced forward, and without that centerpiece, the entire grand vision would fail. Amara stepped forward, her mind racing. "We can rebuild it," she declared. The manager glared at her. "And what would you know? You're just a waitress." But Amara didn't back down. She knelt beside the wreckage, her hands moving with practiced precision. Back home in Nigeria, she'd often helped her mother create decorations for church celebrations using nothing but palm fronds and spare fabric. Creativity had always been survival. She tied garlands with swift knots, rearranged ornaments in fresh patterns, and used ribbons to bind the structure more securely than before. When the arch finally stood again, it looked different from the original. It was better, simpler, yes, but breathtaking. A burst of color and light, woven together with grace that no amount of money could have purchased. Guests began arriving, pausing in genuine awe at the entrance. The whispers shifted from panic to admiration. When Joon's family arrived, even Chairman Kong stopped, his cold eyes narrowing at what Amara had created. But the final surprise came when the sound system failed. Silence replaced the planned orchestra. Everyone turned in confusion. Without hesitation, Amara lifted her voice. She sang softly at first, then stronger. Her Nigerian Christmas hymn filled the vast room like warmth against bitter winter. Her voice wrapped around the guests, pulling them into a moment of stillness and wonder, something money could never buy. And in that instant, Amara wasn't just a waitress. She became the living spirit of Christmas itself. The ballroom erupted in applause. Amara's voice had accomplished what no expensive orchestra could. It captivated hearts and reminded everyone of Christmas's true meaning. Even as the sound system crackled back to life, guests remained transfixed, their eyes fixed on the Nigerian waitress whose song had rescued the moment. Amara, breathless, lowered her gaze, cheeks burning. She hadn't planned any of it. She hadn't wanted attention, but necessity had pushed her forward. An instinct had carried her through. The manager, who'd been red-faced and panicking moments before, could only stammer, "Acceptable work." But not everyone was pleased. From across the room, Chairman Kang's jaw tightened. He leaned toward his wife. "This girl is becoming problematic." His gaze shifted toward his son, who was applauding proudly, eyes locked on Amara. Later that evening, as the gala unfolded in full splendor, Joon's younger cousin Minho approached Amara while she served champagne. He smirked, his words quiet but vicious. "Enjoy your little moment, waitress, but don't confuse applause with acceptance. People clap for street performers too. Doesn't make them family." The sting of his words nearly shattered her composure. But before she could respond, Joon appeared at her side. His hand brushed against hers briefly as he took a glass. His eyes, warm and defiant, communicated what words couldn't. Ignore them. But the night wasn't finished. Silence fell as Chairman Kang rose to address the crowd. He praised the hotel's success, the event's elegance, and the future of the Kang Empire. Then, with a deliberate pause, he gestured toward Joon. "My son, the heir of this legacy, must understand the responsibilities that accompany our name. That begins with making choices worthy of our status. Tonight, I want to make absolutely clear that the Kangs do not associate inappropriately with staff members." The words sliced through the evening's joy like shattered glass. Eyes turned first to Joon, then to Amara. Low murmurs spread through the room. Amara's hands trembled on the tray she held, her heart pounding in her ears. She wanted to vanish, but the stares of the powerful held her frozen in place. Then Joon stood. The clinking of champagne glasses ceased. Every eye in the ballroom fixed on Joon as he rose. His heart hammered, but his voice rang clear. "Father," he said, bowing respectfully first, honoring tradition. Then he straightened, his gaze unwavering. "With all due respect, you're mistaken." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The Kang heir had never publicly contradicted his father before. "This gala," Joon continued, his voice steady and strong, "wasn't saved by wealth or status or carefully managed appearances. It was saved by heart, by courage, by someone you dismiss as beneath us." He turned, his eyes, finding Amara in the crowd. His expression filled with unmistakable pride. "It was saved by her." Amara froze, her breath catching as whispers surged around the room. That Nigerian waitress? Did he really just? Unthinkable. Chairman Kang's face darkened, his jaw clenched tight. "Joon, sit down. Do not embarrass this family further." But Joon stepped forward. Every movement deliberate. Embarrassment is pretending love doesn't exist. Embarrassment is believing money makes us more valuable as human beings than others. If this family empire cannot recognize the worth of someone like Amara, then perhaps it's not worth inheriting. The silence that followed felt electric, charged with possibility. Amara's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall, her body trembling with fear and wonder combined. Nobody had ever defended her like this, especially not someone with everything to lose. Then from the corner of the hall, an elderly guest, the chairman's longest-standing business partner, slowly rose to his feet. "The young man speaks truth," the old man said, his voice gravelly but firm. "This woman's voice moved us tonight. And if your empire has no space for genuine heart, Chairman Kang, then perhaps its foundation is weaker than I believed." A murmur of agreement stirred among the guests. For the first time, Chairman Kang's authority wavered. His grip on the room loosened. Amara stood there, caught between terror and amazement as Joon extended his hand toward her. "Walk with me," he said softly, his eyes never leaving hers. And in front of Seoul's most powerful elite, she placed her trembling hand in his. The aftermath was pandemonium. Guests buzzed with gossip, some applauding Joon's courage, others shaking their heads in disbelief. The press, though instructed to remain discreet, had already begun whispering about the scandal brewing within the Kang dynasty. Amara, overwhelmed, wanted nothing more than to escape. When she and Joon finally stepped out into the crisp night air, snow falling softly around them, she pulled her hand free. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered, her breath visible in the cold. "You don't realize what this means. They'll never forgive me. They'll never forgive you." Joon turned to her, his expression unshaken. "I don't care about their forgiveness. I care about what's real. Amara shook her head, tears brimming. You're an heir, Joon. You belong to that world, and I don't. All I wanted was to work, save money, keep my family alive back home. I never asked for any of this. But you gave me something I never had, he said, stepping closer. Do you understand how empty my existence has been? Surrounded by wealth, but starving for joy. You showed me what Christmas truly means. Not chandeliers and champagne, but laughter and connection and tangled lights. I can't return from that. I won't. Amara's lips parted, her chest tightening with emotions she couldn't name. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to lean into the warmth of his words. But the crushing weight of reality pressed harder. Inside the hotel, Chairman Kong's fury boiled over. This ends immediately, he hissed to his advisors. Find out everything about that girl. Her background, her family, her vulnerabilities. If my son won't let go willingly, we'll force her departure. And as Amara and Joon stood in the snowfall, their breath mingling in the frozen air, neither knew how devastating the approaching storm would be. The next morning, Amara woke to whispers, spreading like wildfire among the staff. Her name was on every tongue. Some praised her talent and bravery. Others mocked her for allegedly trapping the heir. In the storage area, 2 waitresses snickered as Amara passed. Look at her playing Cinderella. She'll learn. The Kangs don't marry outsiders, especially not foreign waitresses. Amara kept her head down, but her hands trembled as she cleaned serving trays. It wasn't just gossip. It was the beginning of a storm she feared she couldn't survive. By afternoon, she was summoned to the manager's office. The man's expression was stiff, his tone colder than usual. Amara, the chairman has received concerns. Effective immediately, your employment is suspended pending review. Her chest hollowed. Suspended? But I haven't. No arguments. You may collect your pay for this week. That's all. As she stepped out, her vision blurred with tears. They weren't just pushing her away. They were cutting her off completely. Her savings, her family back home, everything depended on this income. And now it was slipping away because of a love she hadn't even meant to fall into. That night, Joon found her sitting on the hotel's back steps, clutching her apron like a lifeline. Snow dusted her hair, her eyes red from crying. They suspended you, didn't they? He asked quietly. She nodded, unable to speak. He sat beside her, his jaw tight with rage. This is my family's doing, my father's doing. They think they can intimidate you into leaving. Maybe they're right, she whispered. Maybe I don't belong in this battle. Joon turned, gently cupping her face, forcing her to look at him. You belong with me, and I won't let them decide otherwise. If they want war, they'll have it. For the first time, Amara saw not just gentle warmth in Joon, but fire, a determination that burned hotter than fear. The Kong family moved swiftly. Within days, Amara's landlord told her she had to vacate her small apartment. Orders from above, the woman muttered nervously, avoiding eye contact. I can't go against them. Amara packed her belongings into 2 worn suitcases, her heart heavy. She had no family in Seoul, no one to turn to. She considered calling her mother in Lagos, but stopped. What would she say? That she'd fallen for a man impossibly beyond her reach, and now her life was unraveling because of it? When she stepped outside, Joon was waiting by the curb, his car, idling. He jumped out immediately, rushing to take the suitcases from her hands. They're attacking you, he said, voice tight with anger. This isn't about us. It's about control. My father thinks if he destroys your world, you'll run. Amara's eyes filled with tears. And maybe I should. Joon, look at me. I'm losing everything. I can't fight an empire. Then let me fight for you, he said firmly. Come with me. She hesitated, her pride battling with her desperate need for survival. But as the cold bit into her skin and the weight of her suitcases pulled at her arms, she realized she couldn't stand alone any longer. She allowed him to load her bags into the car. As they drove through Seoul's glittering streets, past towers of glass and steel, she felt the walls of his world closing in. Yet sitting beside him, she also felt strangely safe. When they arrived at a quiet villa on the city's outskirts, Joon led her inside. It wasn't as grand as the Kang mansion, but it was warm, private, and his. This is where I come when I need to breathe, he said softly. And now it's yours too. No one can reach you here. Amara sank onto the couch. exhaustion overwhelming her. For the first time in days, she let herself believe she wasn't alone, but deep down, she knew this peace was only temporary. The Kongs would not stop until they had torn them apart. The storm arrived faster than expected. The next morning, Amara woke to the sound of Joon pacing across the villa's wooden floor. His phone buzzed relentlessly, and his face was tight with anger. "They're leaking stories," he said bitterly. "The tabloids are calling you a gold digger. They've investigated your background, your family, twisted the truth about why you came to Korea. They're trying to paint you as desperate, as someone exploiting me." Amara's stomach dropped. "My family, are they—" "They're dragging them into it too," Joon admitted, his voice low. "Claiming you abandoned them to chase wealth, overseas." Her chest ached, her breath shallow. Her family had always been her reason, her foundation. To see their name twisted in headlines was unbearable. "I can't let them destroy my mother's dignity," she whispered, her hands trembling. "She worked too hard raising us. She sacrificed everything so I could come here." Joon knelt before her, gripping her hands tightly. "Then we won't let them. We'll reveal the truth. We'll show them who you really are." "How, Joon? Your family owns the media. They control the narrative. Then we'll change the narrative ourselves," he said, his eyes burning. "We'll make them see you, not as the waitress they despise, not as the foreigner they mock, but as the woman who saved their Christmas, the woman I love." The word hung between them like fire. Love. Amara's heart stuttered, her lips parting, but no sound came. She wanted to believe him, to hold on to those words, but fear wrapped around her chest like chains. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed again. This time, the message made him pale. "They've arranged a press conference," he whispered, "and they're demanding I publicly denounce you." Amara's blood ran cold. She stared at him, her pulse racing. "What will you do?" Joon looked at her, his voice steady despite the storm around them. "I will tell the world the truth." The day of the press conference arrived like thunder over Seoul. Reporters gathered in the grand hall of the Kang Hotel. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward in anticipation. The scandal had already exploded across social media. Everyone wanted to hear from the Kang heir himself. Amara sat hidden in the villa, glued to the television, her heart pounding. She wanted to beg him not to do it, not to sacrifice himself for her. But Joon had been resolute when he left that morning. "If I don't stand for us now, I'll lose you anyway." Chairman Kang stood at the podium first, his presence commanding. "My son has been misled," he declared, coldly. "The rumors of his involvement with a foreign staff member are exaggerated. Today, he will clarify the truth and end this disgrace." The cameras clicked faster as Joon stepped up beside his father. He looked calm, but Amara knew the fire burning in his chest. He took the microphone, his gaze sweeping across the sea of expectant faces. "My father is right about one thing," Joon began. "I have been involved with someone, and I won't deny it. I have fallen in love." A ripple tore through the crowd. His father's face stiffened, eyes narrowing dangerously. "But he's wrong about it being a disgrace," Joon continued, his voice unwavering. "The woman I love is not a stain on our name. She is the reason I understand what love and Christmas truly mean. She is not a waitress to me. She is Amara, courageous, kind, and stronger than anyone in this room." Gasps filled the hall. Reporters scribbled furiously, some even cheering quietly. The moment crackled with electricity. "Chairman," Kang slammed his hand on the podium. "Enough! You shame this family, Joon. You throw away your legacy for fantasy." Joon turned, his eyes steady. "If love is fantasy, then I choose it over a legacy built on pride." And in that moment, the line was drawn. Amara's phone exploded with activity. Calls from unknown numbers, messages flooding in, half cruel, half supportive. She buried her face in her hands, torn between terror and wonder. He had done it. He had stood against his father. Later that evening, Joon returned to the villa. He looked exhausted, but when he saw her, his expression softened instantly. "You're free now," she whispered. "Free?" she asked, confused. He sat beside her, taking her hands in his. "They've cut me off. My father said if I choose you, I lose the inheritance, the company, everything." Amara's heart clenched. "You gave it all up for me?" "For us," he corrected gently. "I realized I don't need billions to be happy. I just need you. You saved my heart when I didn't even know it needed saving. Tears slipped down Amara's cheeks. She had feared she would ruin his life. Instead, he had chosen to build a new one with her. Days later, the media storm shifted. What began as scandal became a love story the public couldn't stop talking about. Clips of Amara's singing at the gala went viral. People praised her courage, her voice, her creativity. The narrative began to turn. Even business leaders, impressed by Joon's defiance, offered him opportunities outside his father's empire. Chairman Kang, furious, tried to silence the noise, but the tide had changed. The more he tried to bury Amara, the more the world embraced her. Finally, he had no choice but to accept them after his wife pleaded countless times, seeing that their love was truly unbreakable. And on Christmas Eve, under the same glittering tree they had decorated together, Joon took her hand. "Amara," he said softly, his eyes filled with unshakable love. "I don't want to be the heir. I don't want the empire. I want a life with you. Equal, simple, real. Will you walk into it with me?" Amara's breath caught, her smile trembling as tears rolled freely. "Yes, Joon. 1,000 times, yes." The staff who once mocked her now watched in awe as the heir and the waitress walked out of the hotel together, hand in hand, not as billionaire and worker, but as two souls who had chosen love over everything else. Outside, the snow fell softly, wrapping the city in white. Bells from a nearby church rang out, their sound carrying through the crisp night air. And as they walked beneath the glowing Christmas lights of Seoul, their hearts beat in perfect rhythm. Finally free, finally equal, finally home in each other. We've reached the conclusion of our compelling African-Korean story. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories that prove love can heal the deepest wounds. Share this with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Your support means everything to me. Comment below and tell us what part of this story touched your heart the most.